occasioned the need to make this statement and provide clarity and some perspective on some of the issues raised on the floor yesterday. As you may recall, the Honourable Member of Parliament for the Adjuma Enyam Essiem constituency, Honourable KCL Atu Forsen Ban, the ranking member of the Committee on Finance, moved a motion, which motion was for the House to constitute a bipartisan committee to look into the activities of the government with respect to COVID-19 expenditure. I must note that this motion was submitted to me, and I admitted same within the context of Order 79.4 of the Standing Orders of the House. Order 79.4 of the Standing Orders of the House. When the Honourable Atu Forsen was on his feet in an attempt to table the motion, the Deputy Majority Leader, Honourable Alexander Kwamina Afejo-Markin, rose to make a preliminary objection to the tabling of the motion. It was at this juncture that I asked him to suspend his objection, wait for the motion to be tabled, and then he may proceed to submit his objection. In this vein, a motion tabled and not seconded will be struck out, and it will not enter the votes and proceedings of the House. Once a motion is tabled and seconded, it ought to be debated by the House, and the motion may not be withdrawn except with the leave of the House. With this understanding, I ruled that it would not be correct to consider an objection to the motion at the point the motion is being moved or tabled, because before the motion has been tabled, nothing is before the House. It would therefore also be inappropriate to consider an objection to a motion at that point. That was the spirit of my ruling, wherein I asked the Deputy Majority Leader to suspend his objection and raise it after the motion has been tabled. I was very clear on this. When I was handing over to the first Deputy Speaker, that was the message you saw me transmitting to him. The penchant of the first Deputy Speaker to overrule my rulings is, to say the least, unconstitutional, illegal, and offensive. Be that as it may, I shall not be taking any steps to overrule the decision of the first Deputy Speaker to dismiss the motion as moved by the Honourable Ranking Member of the Finance Committee. The Deputy Speakers and I would deliberate on how to present a more coherent and uniform structure in respect of rulings so that the House is guided. I hope this is understood. And I repeat, I hope this statement provides a much needed clarity on the matters of dispute that arose yesterday. And I hope we can forge ahead for the common good of the people who have entrusted us with leadership and a mandate to better their lives.
Many thanks to you for tuning in and staying with us. In case you just joined us, you're live on AM Ghana here on Adwa Television, and you just heard from Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbane yesterday, when he was making a statement. I wanted to say that he was lamenting, but the essence of it was that he was making a statement on the decision by his deputy, the first deputy speaker, Honourable, Right Honourable, in the context, Joseph Osei Wusu, Honorable Joe Wise, when he overruled a motion that was tabled by the minority. The motion was actually read by Member of Parliament for Ejumaku Enyam ACM constituency, Dr. Kisil Atu Forsen. The motion sought to establish a bipartisan committee chaired by a minority member to probe into the expenses made in relation to COVID-19 since 2020. Now, this is a motion that has been in Parliament for well over a year. And when the motion was tabled, Deputy Majority Leader Honorable Afenyo Makin put in a preliminary objection, of which the Speaker himself indicated that he could wait until the motion was tabled and then he comes in with the preliminary objection. By and by, fast forward, the motion was tabled, then the Speaker exited to make way for the first Deputy Speaker to come and sit in. He overruled the decision by the Speaker for the preliminary objection to be raised after the motion has been tabled to the effect of the Standing Orders 794 of Parliament, which indicates that after a motion has been tabled, it must be seconded for other discussions goes on with it, just to sum it. And this has been the unsettlement in a Parliament, which the Speaker made the statement to yesterday. Now, interesting fact as well, away from Parliament, is that after the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education, the courts and other institutions have had conversations with the UTAG. They decided to go back to their tables and have a meeting, decide and caucus over the plea and see if they were going to rescind the decision. Wholly, UTAG has rescinded its decision, but pending a referendum from individual branches of UTAG. The University of Education, Winneba, has rejected the call to return back to the classrooms. The University of Ghana, via its referendum, has also rejected the call to return back to the classrooms, even though the universal umbrella of UTAG has called off the strike, pending what decision might come out by March 4th. We will look at some of these nitty-gritties and the unsettlement in there as well. So if you are in these two schools, University of Education, University of Ghana, you are not going to school. Relax, sit down and watch your mates go to school. For the purpose of these discussions and more, you can also join us in the course of the discussion. Help me welcome Justice Dorsey. He is a retired appeals court judge. Justice Dorsey, good morning and welcome to AM Ghana. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say hi to all your viewers and listeners and say that momentous events are happening in this country.
Exactly.
And we need large hearts and sensible people to bring these matters down. Tension is mounting and it's not good for economic development. So thank you very much.
Very well. Well, our viewers say hi back. Now let's go to Parliament a little bit. I realize you were sort of smiling, and you know these are interesting times we find ourselves indeed. And yesterday, also as pronounced by the Speaker, this is not the first time that his deputy, the first deputy Speaker, has overturned a decision that he has made. And so you realize that in the processes or towards approving the 2020 two budgets that was read last year. Some decisions were returned by the first deputy speaker, and it goes on and on and on. These are characteristics of a hung parliament that, I mean, we expect. But you put parliament aside, this is more about leadership and who has the right or the power to overturn what. You have mentioned right now that we need sensible people in order to settle the unrest and move on together as a country. What would you make of the first deputy speaker's position when he assumes the role of a speaker?
It's very interesting. I have the constitution beside me. If you look at Article 95, sorry, 59, which creates the position of vice president. The vice president is assigned definite function.
Okay.
Let me read it.
Very well.
Article 95, so 59. There shall be a vice president of Ghana who shall perform such functions as may be assigned to him by this constitution or by the president. Definitely, the vice president cannot act on his own. He has no independence to act outside the constitution or without definite instruction from the president.
Right.
So, by extension, the vice president can never cancel a decision taken by the president. But when you come to Article 96, deputy speakers, no functions have been assigned specifically to the deputy speakers. The deputy speakers are supposed to perform the functions of the speaker. The question is, to what extent can the deputy speaker act? If the speaker has given instructions, can the deputy overrule the speaker's decision? There is a lacuna or a gap in the law. If the provisions were to be exactly like the one in Article 59 regarding the president and the vice president, this issue would not have happened.
Right.
I also want to draw attention to listeners and viewers to 96 1B. It says that both. So let me talk about A first. A says that there shall be two deputy speakers of parliament. A, who shall be elected by members of parliament from among the members of parliament. And B, and that's the serious aspect, both of whom shall not be members of the same political party.
Okay.
Currently, we have two deputy speakers who are members of the same political party. It is a total infraction of the constitution. It is unconstitutional for both deputy speakers to belong to the same political party. It is clear. So for us to have this unfortunate architecture in which both deputy speakers belong to the same party, something is definitely wrong.
Right.
And the rules must be revisited. As far as I am concerned, one of the deputy speakers is occupying an unconstitutional position. And that must be decided probably in the Supreme Court. Because this is total infraction. I don't know whether the lawyers did not read the Constitution before they agreed that both deputy speakers should belong to one party. So all the fighting and all those things that have been going on, all the argument that I'm also a member of parliament and I can vote and all, should not have arisen if both deputy speakers were not from the same political party.
Well, it's argued that the second deputy speaker was an independent candidate at the time, and so of course he is not directly from the majority or the NPP political party in Parliament, although he's caucusing with them. Could that be an infraction?
You see, you have to look at the form and the substance.
Right.
There's nobody in this country who doesn't know that the second deputy speaker is an MPP.
But I mean, constitutionally, he entered in there.
Yes,
yes.
When you are acting with discretion, you don't just look at the form of the law. You have to look at the substance of the arrangement under the Constitution.
Okay. Well, just as let me quickly dive into a conversation on the phone lines. We have Rashid, who is a member of the Parliamentary Affairs Ghana. Hello, Rashid. Good morning. Hello, Rashid. Hello.
Yes.
Well, Rashid, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard the safest airline in Africa. With industry-leading safety measures to protect your well-being. The first in Africa to earn a diamond standard of safety. Offering a more contactless, safe, and seamless experience. Delivered with a smile by Africa's first fully vaccinated crew. Creating special memories that bring the joy back to flying, so you can continue making memories with your loved ones. Book your flight with RwandAir today. RwandAir, the safest airline in Africa.
RwandAir, fly the dream of Africa.
Lent is a period of admonishment, fast, giving, self-denial, and remorse. Join us this season on the Lenten Afternoon Meditation live on Adoa TV from Mondays to Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. as these great people of God take us through moments of reflections, meditation, prayer, atonement, purging, and reconciliation with God and one another. Don't miss this opportunity to commune with God for just 30 minutes on the Lenten Afternoon Meditation.
I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophy.
Again, you're here in AM Ghana on Adoa Television. Many thanks to you for staying. Well, through the difficulties we get into the future, and we're here with Justice Isaac Dozie, a retired appeals court judge. We're touching on the situation currently in Parliament, where the speakers, the first deputy speaker and the speaker himself, are in this sort of, should I say banter? Well, it's not a banter, conflict. Let me thank you very much. Appeals court judge leading you the right words. Yes,
conflict.
It's a serious conflict.
Yes.
And so you were on that aspect. So about the second deputy speaker's position. I mean, he got in there December 2020 as an independent candidate for the Fomena constituency, and so he was elected. I don't know to which extent that may violates the constitution or the standing orders of parliament.
Technically speaking, he is not from the same party on paper. Right? These are matters of the heart. To make matters worse, he has decided not to keep his independence, but to align himself, in fact, commit himself into alignment with the NPP. So you can see from the start that he isn't going to be an independent person. It would have been beautiful and nice if he has retained his independence and maintained the skills in Parliament. He lost a very beautiful opportunity to be the be-all and end-all to create stability in Parliament. But he threw it away. It is very regrettable that he did that just for the position of second deputy speaker. It is unfortunate as far as I am concerned, because it was an opportunity, a God-given opportunity, to balance issues in Parliament. Perhaps if he had maintained his independence, we wouldn't have been having all these problems. But be that all that as it may, if Article 96 had also stated, as it was in 59, that the Constitution will give an assignment to the deputy speakers, like the Constitution gives assignment to the vice president, and then the president should give instruction to the vice president, this situation wouldn't have arisen, because then the speaker could have given instructions or directives to a deputy speaker as to what he should do in his absence.
So, and this brings us to the legality of all of these matters. As the Constitution focused on the positions being occupied or the persons occupying the position. Because of course, if you delegate me to take up your position, I am in your chair, there would be some critical decisions that I would have to take. And of course, when I take your position, I become the president. Whether there is interim, whether there is acting, there is, that position of presidency also there. When you take the position of a speaker or the speaker, which also, these same words cause confusion sometime again there. But when you take the position of the speaker, certainly all these positions, all these responsibilities of the speaker behoves on you. Is the constitution focused on the person, the personality occupying the position, or the position in itself?
It should have been focused on the position,
certainly,
not the personality.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll be creating a personality cult. So that is why we have precedents and other systems within the constitutional arrangements. Constitutional government frowns on what people call, for lack of proper decision, locally they say new king, new law. Constitutional government frowns on it, because everybody should know what the law is and how you should react to the law. So it doesn't mean that if we change the speaker today, then the ball game changes, or when we change the president today, the ball game changes. The constitution is still guarding and controlling everybody. So when a person is acting, he can exercise his discretion. But when a decision had been taken and formed, I don't think that it behoves the person who comes to the acting position to have the power to reverse a decision that had already been taken by the actual incumbent of the position.
Okay.
Can you imagine a situation in which, let's say, the vice president decides when the president travels
that nobody will pay you levy?
Yes, or to reverse some ministerial appointments before he comes.
Right.
What kind of confusion can that be? Because the ministerial appointment has been made. People have been put in position. The president travels for 10 days. By the time he comes by, the vice president, he has the power to do that. Being the president for the time being. But is it reasonable for him to perform his functions that way, to exercise his discretion that way? But that's because when the president appointed someone the minister, he didn't like it. So as soon as the president goes away, he decides to.
But the constitution is would you say, you are an appeals court, would you say that the constitution and the standing orders that are based on the constitution as well are vague in these, areas? Should there be a review for these kind of things so that we can be straight on it?
There are two things. You can't provide for every possible occurrence under a constitution.
Okay.
So you need people who will interpret the constitutional provisions in what people used to call a reasonable way or common sensical way, which we now call purposive way.
Okay.
So when you are interpreting any provision of the constitution, you are finding out that the decision you are taking drives the purpose of the constitution.
Right.
The constitution has a purpose, and every decision you take must have the capacity of furthering the purpose or improving the purpose that has been done. But if you take any decision that will regress from what the drive that the constitution has put in, then you are not applying the constitution in a purposive manner. If we continue the way we are continuing, each time the speaker gets up, the deputy speaker comes, he reverses what the speaker has done. Are we going to arrive anywhere?
So yesterday the speaker says that you know, in his position as a speaker, he doesn't just caucus with the parliamentarians, he caucuses with the presidents, the judges, the ministers, the traditional leaders, and what so have you. And he has indicated that all of these other people that he caucus with are not happy with the performance of Parliament. Are you happy with the performance of Parliament so far, especially this 8th Parliament?
It is yes and no. I'm happy that we have a hung Parliament because it seems as if over the years we have been having constitutional dictatorship of parties. So when the party majority decides to do something, it doesn't matter what the minority says, they will carry on. They say the opposition has its say and we have our way. But now we have got to a position where we are being forced to dialogue, to give and to take and make compromises so that governance will go on. And I dare say there's a God-sent opportunity for us to deepen our democracy, because democratic government or constitutional government constitutes does a lot with consultation, midnight consultations, dawn consultations, before issues are even tabled in the open in Parliament. So the decisions that come out in Parliament cannot be said all the time to have been solely formed on the floor of Parliament. There are many, as the Speaker was saying, many forms of consultations will have gone on, and the ground is watered and softened before the decisions are taken. So it is an opportunity for us to avoid constitutional dictatorship by the majority in Parliament.
Very well. Now let's wrap up on that so that we can touch briefly on ETAG as well. Yesterday, the Speaker says that he is not there to overturn the decision by his deputy, rather called on the movers of the motion to, you know, as a matter of fact, based on the standing orders, because you can, based on the standing order, there are provisions
you can
where,
repeat.
yes, where you can challenge or, you know, appeal the decision of the Speaker, and so he asked them to do what is constitutionally right to appeal. Now he said that he is not going to challenge the decision by his deputy, even though he is the Speaker, he has every right. When you look at his position and the position of the first Deputy Speaker, you realize that the position of the first Deputy Speaker is the otherwise of the position of the Speaker, especially in what he said yesterday. Is Joe Wise being insubordinate?
Quite aside from that, he's been partisan.
Okay.
Because if you look at the circumstances of the events, his party leadership is being asked to account for a position, which may be in his own expectation, if that process went to the farthest end, could cause embarrassment to his party. And I think that it's probably that perception which made him take that decision. You know, Parliament is supposed to be the counterpin in this country to prevent executive excesses. That is why Parliament grants and approves budgets and expenditure for the citizen, and Parliament also receives report on how those grants were used. And if they, from my point of view, I don't know the full circumstances, but from my point of view, if there's a complaint that somebody is misusing funds in the system, it is up to Parliament to stand up. Nobody else can stand up. If we don't allow Parliament to stand up to the executive who are abusing this thing, we are going to call for riots in place of parliamentary process. We are going to ask for riots and demonstrations, which will not augur well for the peaceful development of this country. So instead of using riots and demonstrations and all those kind of things, the parliamentary provision is made to ensure that the people who represent us in parliament act on our behalf.
Well, we pray that they put that into perspective.
Yes.
So the actual facts of the matter is that whilst the minority,
so I won't say that he's being insubordinate,
but he's being partisan.
Yes,
very well.
More partisan than
to go back to the substance of the matter, is the minority calling for a bipartisan committee to be set and to be chaired by a member of the minority to probe into the expenditure by government on COVID-19 since 2020. Right now, when Joe Wise assumed the seat, he indicated that after listening to both sides argue and raise new concerns from the preliminary objection by
the deputy
second
deputy speaker,
by the second majority leader, indicated that the committee that the minority was calling to be established, is seeking to perform a role that is being performed by the Public Accounts Committee. And so he ruled that the motion shouldn't have been in Parliament in the first place, and that it is, out of order.
That's what I'm saying, that he was being partisan.
Right.
Because I remember Ajimamenu, Minister of Health, was brought to come and account for certain things he did without waiting for the Auditor General's report. So what is the difference now? You understand? Now it is the Minister of Finance who is, in the circumstance, the Minister of Finance who will be asked to come and account for how he has spent certain monies which were received on behalf of the government of Ghana.
Well, yesterday Joe Wise wasn't in Parliament. We understand that he had travelled. Let's hope that today he returns and see if he would address the press on the decision of the Speaker. Let's leave with parliamentarians on that one. Okay. Now, even parliamentarians through the Select Committee on Education has appealed to UTAG to rescind the decision, the strike decision, and so UTAG decides finally to rescind the decision, but on a referendum from several branches of UTAG. Two UTAG branches, the University of Ghana and University of Education, Winneba, have not accepted the decision so far.
Have the rest accepted?
The rest have accepted through a referendum. They went, sector by sector, voted, and they have decided to go back to the classrooms, waiting till March 4th when the government will come out with a substantial, resolution to their problems. As it stands, what do you make of the position of UTAG, where they find themselves now, and considering the fact that communication or appeal has started since 1992, and as of now, there seems not to be a level ground for UTAG and the government to play on?
There is a big problem. When you are negotiating, there should be something on the ground.
Okay.
It doesn't seem as if there's anything on the ground. I'm not aware of that. But if you are doing a genuine and committed negotiation, someone wants you to pay him 10 cedis a day. If you put 5 cedis on the table, you have started the game of dominoes and you can move. But if there's nothing on the ground and you say go back to work, some people will not understand it. Because you see, my economic needs are not the same as yours. What makes me hungry or angry is not what makes you hungry or angry. So, as it is now, the leadership in Legon has failed to convince their constituents that they have done a good job. The same thing in University of Education Winneba. Whatever it is, next week is March the 4th.
Exactly.
So there's no need of crying too much about what has happened. The other universities who have agreed are going to start classes on Monday. And I think Thursday or so will
that'll be March 4th.
March 4th. It takes time to organize classes and students and so on and so forth. So I don't think that we need to be too worried about the position taken by the University of Ghana and University of Education in Winneba. They want to see them. They want to see something before they react. Unfortunately for us in this country, throughout the governance of this country, labor issues have always been very difficult to do. Agreements have been very difficult to carve out. And it seems as if we react on knee-jerk basis as to the demands of labor. So today, UTAG comes up and kicks, and then is given its share. Tomorrow, NAT will come up and it will be given. Next, the nurses will come up and be given. That piecemeal sort of thing that cannot be properly budgeted for some of us, and for me in particular, I would have thought that all labor issues should be put on the table at least once every while for a proper review to be made. The civil servants too are, and local government, they are also agitating for this thing. And I don't think that, mathematically speaking, it is good to do a piecemeal listen, because you see, all the people must have what we call coordinates in the system. If you achieve director in the Ministry of Education, for example, you must have a counterpart in the university arrangements with whom you move in tandem. So I think President Kufuor, when they tried the single spine thing, I thought the single spine was intended to create a level measuring ground for all people who are in public service, so that the disparities will not be too much. Because when you are doing it piecemeal, the likelihood is that you have the tendency to give some people more than, in inverted commas, they deserve in the eyes of others. So for me, to bring these things to a close, I think we need to go back and probably reconsider the single spine issue, so that when government is negotiating, it can have a proper mathematical basis for allocating salaries and so on and so forth. You know, currently they say 80% of our revenue. I don't know which of the revenues, because they have not added the gold and the others. So the revenue goes into payments of
our loans, our debts,
our debts, and the other 20. So debts and emoluments. So just very little money is left for
internal consumption,
for development purposes. If that is the situation, then it needs careful and compassionate discussion of all sectors. If I were government, I would take this opportunity to invite all the sectors and the labor movement in all the sectors of this thing, and hammer out a clear position on this thing. For example, all people who hold a first degree on the point of entry into a system must have very comparable income levels. There's no reason why a teacher,
regardless the field they are playing,
yes, the field they're playing, if you have a degree and you are from the university and you are starting a job, it doesn't matter whether you are in the bank or you are in the classroom, because no sector of the public service is more important than the other.
Right.
If the teachers don't teach well, there will be a problem. In fact, the best way to destroy a country is to destroy its educational system. So if you have dissatisfied or disgruntled people teaching in the classrooms, my brother, you are in trouble. The same thing, if people feel dissatisfied generally, you the two of you graduated from the same university. One is in the bank, is earning 3 times what you are earning in the public service. It's one of the reasons why there's corruption. The disparity is too much. Maybe if there's a disparity, it can be, for example, most times civil servants close at 5. Those who work in the banks close at 7 or 8. So they can get allowances for extra time spent on the job. I don't think anybody will quarrel seriously with that. And it's the same thing with the police. The same thing with the armed forces. It shouldn't be seen in any circumstance that certain people in certain employments are receiving as much as 3 times that of their counterparts when they all went to the same university, had the same qualification, and are serving the same master. So for me, I think it is time to call a tripartite. They used to have this tripartite, whatever it is, of labor and all the rest of it. Reconstitute that body and sit down and work it out in such a way that everybody will be satisfied. You know the major problem that is going on? It is the constant depreciation of the city, which is the cause of all these problems. Because if you earn 2,000 cedis today, at the end of the year, this very year, what you can use 2,000 cedis to do in February, you can't use it to do in December.
But these are lecturers who are being paid in dollars. The remuneration was quoted in dollars. Currently, they are receiving about 998 point something at entry level, when indeed they were promised 2,098 at entry level. These are dollar figures. They shouldn't be worried because the dollar goes, or they are in a country where
there is an error there. Our people have been complaining about dollarization in Ghana. Dollar is not our currency. So dollarization can maintain the quality and value of your salary. But if they are running on that tangent, what about the civil servants? So I think it was wrong to have dollarized this thing. I think that the best thing to have done was to do an annual adjustment of the salaries in view of the cost of living index. Here we are in this country. I don't know what the cost of living index is. In other parts of the country, there's a column in some of the newspapers as to the cost of living index, and even tells you if you are working at a certain level, the areas in which you can live, that the accommodation can be, the kind of car you can drive, the kind of food you must eat.
But right now, does it even matter the kind of car you can drive when fuel prices are running more than the cars? Anyway, let's look at the guy. Since I'm speaking to a judge, let's look at the legality of the strike action by UTAG. NLC took UTAG to court, challenging the legality of their strike action. First off, many have indicated that was a wrong move because they should have engaged rather than trying to use the court to threaten UTAG, which of course did not even yield anything, although the processes are still ongoing. Has NLC showed good faith, and is the process anything to go by, the legal process?
I would say that the labor law, by the way it's constructed, is unfair. And what the unions, members of Legon and University of Education have done is to their government. Now we say we won't go. Come and collect all of us and lock us up. Is it possible? That's the challenge. So that's the way I understand the challenge they have thrown. Our leaders, you stay aside. You have agreed. Stay aside. They can't arrest you. They should come and collect all of us and imprison us for. It won't work. So as you rightly said, the rampant resource to court for injunction will not work. You see, it is not good to have reluctant people working for you, disgruntled people working for you. They won't put up their best.
Anything. Yeah.
So the better thing to do is always to judge. I think the legal structure, which declares that certain aspects, certain employment aspects are essential aspects, and therefore they must not go on strike. And in the same vein, because the law says that they must not go on strike, you deny them what they need, their living wages. So I think that the resort to injunction in the court must be sparingly adopted, so that it won't look as if each time you want to go on strike, labor takes you to court and stifles you. It's not. It doesn't work well when you are injuncted and you are asked to go and negotiate. It's like putting a gun behind somebody's head and asking him to negotiate. How is he going to negotiate when the gun is the cold gun is feeling the coldness of the metal of the gun at the back of his neck, and you say you should negotiate? You can't negotiate like that. So, as I said earlier on, as a human being, the best thing that you will do all the time is to be able to negotiate. If you can't negotiate, you are not a human being. Animals don't negotiate. It's only human beings who can negotiate. So everybody should be able to negotiate. And when you are negotiating, you are not negotiating from the position of power. You are negotiating from the position of equality.
Right.
Because if the powers are imbalanced, then there's no need to set up the labor systems where people can negotiate and all those kind of things.
Is it a National Labor Commission essential to labor when you look at the number of strikes, number of demonstrations, labor unrest in the country? I mean, these are bound to happen. But we're looking at the essence of the position of the National Labor Commission. And when you put UTAG into perspective, UTAG has remained vehement on their strike. They've remained adamant because over the years, they have demanded for this same thing, that they've been asked to go back to the classrooms and that something will be done about it, and nothing is done about it. And when they go back to demand again, a labor commission that is supposed to moderate or solicit on behalf of the laborers tend to rather, go on the other side
to oppress them,
to oppress the laborers. Is it essential as an a state institution?
If the powers are used in moderation, it is necessary. But if they are used capriciously, then it is not essential. You see, just before we started, you were telling somebody about truthfulness, candidness.
Yes, McLean, my producer.
Yes, candidness. If you are negotiating with somebody and the person sees clearly that you are not committed, you are not candid, over so many years you say the same thing and you don't do it. You take the grounds away from the feet of those who can trust you. And trust is very important in negotiation. Candidness is if you are negotiating and the person knows that your word is your bond or your vow, then the person can feel comfortable to sit with you. The complaints I have heard, it may not be true, but that's what I've heard on the grapevine, is that even when meetings are called, those who have the mandate to attend the meeting don't come. And they send those who cannot take decisions to come. It is two sides of the same coin. If it doesn't necessarily mean that the Minister of Finance or the Deputy Minister of Finance should attend the meeting. The Chief Director can attend the meeting if he's properly mandated. Well, the Chief Director is a permanent staff of the Ministry of Finance. He has a historic trail in the ministry. And there's nothing wrong if the minister gives him the mandate to come and negotiate, and he negotiates within those limits. So for UTAG sometimes to say that because the people who come to the meetings are not designated persons or the people they expect to meet at the meeting, it's also a little bit how do I put it? It's a little confusing for me, because you see, the minister should not be seen to be doing everything. The minister must be able to delegate some of these functions. So it just like people have been complaining that when they are opening, how do you call it, secondary schools, the president must be there to commission the secondary school. I think it is waste of the president's time to commission every project that government has done. The district chief executive can do it. The minister, the sector minister can do that. The chief director can do that. It doesn't mean that without the presence of the president, the people there are being disrespected by the presidency. It makes the presidency do a lot of things which are not really necessary. The important thing is that the project has been completed. Who commissions it is not, with due respect, important. So I also plead with the UTAG or the labor organizations that they should not expect that the ultimate person should be at the meeting at all times before the decision can be taken. Anybody who is clothed with sufficient authority can attend the meeting and report back. There's something we call in negotiations a fallback position. If the minister himself is there and the decision is taken, he is bound. He cannot correct or amend the decision that is taken there. But if a subordinate goes there and brings it, they say, "Oh, like good, let's take this one. Let's take this one out. Let's add this one, or let's subtract this one." And then the decision is eventually made. I don't think that is fair for the minister of finance to attend every labor settlement meeting. I don't think it's fair.
Well, let's see what happens come March 4th, where UTAG has given ultimatum to hear something from the Labour Commission. If not, they stand to go back on a strike. We don't want our students going back on Monday and then returning back by Thursday. So we are appealing with the Labour Commission. We are appealing with the Ministry of Finance. We are appealing with all state institutions that are responsible to ensuring that UTAG is okay, which will have a rippling effect on our brothers and sisters in the tertiary institutions. I've been speaking to Justice Isaac.
Let me ask something.
Very well.
I think the members of UTAG are reasonable people. They are all very well educated people. They are not children. Some of them have taught some of the ministers who they are negotiating with. And I think that there should be a free give and take in these circumstances.
Where free give and take means?
Means that, for example, if how much is $2,098? $98. Is it $298?
Yes, $2,098.
How much is it? It's about 14,000.
Yeah, almost.
14,000.
Yes. Isaac, please check for me.
It's about 14,000 cedis. Okay. What is the general cost of living and the rest of it? They should, if they reason well with the UTAG and tell them that, look, if we carry this one, the economy will go bust, because everybody else is going to ask. Once you start UTAG on 14,000 as a beginning pay,
is it reasonable? What do you think it would be reasonable to
it's reasonable
entry level?
It is reasonable depending on your ability. It is reasonable depending on your ability. For a worker, whatever you give him, which if you give him what he is asking for, he'll be satisfied. But the question is about how can the payer pay? Because you see, that one, your social security will kick in. Second tier will kick in. It's not only the 14,000 or more cedis that is it's just the surface of it. Other things will add up, and the employer will find that it's not only 14,000 you are going to pay. Eventually, you are going to pay about 16 or 18,000. You understand? So we have to really sit down and candidly and openly work at this. And whilst we are doing that, we have to keep an eye and an ear on what others are also going to ask for, because whatever is given to UTAG now will form a benchmark from which everybody else is going to ask for payment. Exactly. The soldiers will ask, the police will ask, nurses, doctors, everybody, they will act, and then I can foresee total confusion in the labor front.
Well, probably when you promise, you should think about whether you can satisfy those promises or not. So when you start at an entry level promise of $2,098, the question is that, can you fulfill this? Is it sustainable? Can you do it? Well, I've been speaking to Justice Isaac Dose. He's a retired appeals court judge. We touched on the situation in Parliament about leadership speaker and his abled deputy. We'll also be touching on UTAG and the strike, finding out the legality of the entire process and what behoves of us as a nation. Justice, thank you very much once again. We're very grateful for your time. Well, we'll be speaking on child cancer, and Julia will be coming in to speak to a pediatric oncologist right here after this break. Don't go anywhere.